So who got the big uglies? Whose O-line is really the biggest and baddest in college football?
Who's ranked, who's real, who's built to last, who got exposed, who's moving fast. From the HBCU pride to the Power 5 lights, we talk football every week, every night. Fans in the stands, drums on go, lights on bright, and the crowd moves slow. Big hits, ball picks, everybody knows. Daniel Roundtree got the football show.
Ahoy! I'm Daniel Roundtree. This is the Daniel Roundtree College Football Show. Hey, we got a really good show for you today. I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for tuning in. One thing about today's a new day. That means it is a good day to talk college football. Listen, today we are talking top 10 offensive lines in all of college football, and we're rating them as a group. So if you just have a standout offensive tackle or a standout center, it don't matter. You're not going to be on this list. We're talking the top 10 lines, top to bottom, the lines that I think that are going to absolutely dominate college football. Before we get into the list, listen, I always want to show you a little appreciation. I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for tuning in, making this one of your top watches of the day. If you like this type of content, go ahead and consider subscribing. Why not? You're here anyways. Like this video, turn on those alerts because we have more content just like this coming your way. So as said, we're talking top 10 offensive lines. And listen, I don't want to waste no time. Let's get right into the list. Before I do that, I want to talk criteria, right? Because when we talk offensive line, listen, the beauty of offensive linemen is these are the guys that you're not going to see a bunch of top offensive linemen in the portal every single year. It just doesn't happen. You might see a few of them. I know when Isaiah World went from Nevada to Oregon, that was a really big deal, right? You might see the JUCO transfers come in like Markel Bell when he went to Miami, but most offensive linemen are getting recruited and they're getting developed because it's one of the hardest positions to develop. It's also the hardest position to find. How many 6'8", 330-pound guys that can run do you know? Just really think about it. Name them in the top of your head right now, just real quick. Just name 3 of them. I bet you didn't name any because there's not that many big guys in the world in general on our planet. So this is the hardest position to develop, hardest position to recruit because there's not that many. So at number 10, we have the University of Michigan. Listen, I love to mention teams who have a long history of having really good offensive linemen. Michigan has big time guys, and they've always had really good offensive linemen. I think for this year's team, so they have 4 returning offensive linemen, and that's big because offensive linemen continuity is really important in regards to how they play together and play off of each other. Andrew Sprague, might be saying that wrong, he definitely leads this group. So he was a former big time recruit. He started all 12 games at tackle. I think he's definitely going to be an anchor for this team. They also have Jake Wamara, who's logged, 710 snaps. At the University of Michigan, he's moving over from guard to center to lead the group. Listen, the centers are the quarterbacks of the offensive line. A lot of times they change and call out protections. They touch the ball every play. The center and the quarterback are the only 2 players, think about that touch the ball every single play. So it's an important position. As a unit last year, the reason why Michigan is at number 10, despite having 4 starters and not being a little bit higher, so they gave up 21 sacks last year. 21 sacks is a lot of sacks, especially seeing that Michigan went to a bowl game, but they didn't play in the playoffs. So if you watch Michigan, you kind of know they were sporadic in regards to protecting the quarterback. And that is a little bit harder when you have a mobile quarterback like Bryce Underwood, but PFF, Pro Football Focus, also agrees that this team, they're around the C+ grade. They just didn't do that good overall on the year. The run game, however, for Michigan was great. They had great PFF numbers across the board, every single player for the run game. The pass protection is what really struggled for the University of Michigan. So that's why they're at number 10. However, one big stat that I will absolutely name on every single team on this list is how many 4 or 5 stars are in the unit. That's important because, again, offensive line is the hardest to recruit. It's also the hardest to develop. How many 4 or 5 star offensive linemen are on the current roster? So Michigan has 6, And 6 is great. It's just not a lot compared to a lot of the other teams on this list. 6 former 4 or 5 stars currently on the roster. So at number 10, we have Michigan. At number 9, we have Miami, the University of Miami, them Canes. Listen, Miami, historically, since Mario Cristobal has showed up in Coral Gables, has had amazing offensive line. This is one group out of all the groups on the list, I think, is going to drastically move up as the year goes on. A big reason they're at number 9, so they only have one returning starter coming back to Miami. So I think all 4 guys made it to the NFL, but obviously Francis was drafted in the first round. I think Markel Bell went 3rd. I think Inez Cooper went like 5th or 6th. And then their center, I think either got drafted or was a free agent. So this O-line doesn't have a lot coming back, but they're going to be ultra talented. However, they're also going to be really young. Miami only gave up 20 sacks. Now, that sounds like a lot, but then you have to consider Miami played in all 16 games in the season last year. So that's a great number. The beauty when we talk Pro Football Focus and the stats for Miami, so their top 6 guys were only blamed for 3 sacks. Yes, 3 sacks in all 16 games. A lot of the other sacks, according to Pro Football Focus, were the quarterback holding too long. So there was only 3 sacks where the top 6 guys physically just got beat. They got toe up by the DNs or defensive line. The other sacks were all backup units in blowout duty, right? Where they played some of the smaller schools. And in those games, of course, there were some sacks. So overall, they had elite Pro Football Focus grades in regards to the offensive line, especially pass blocking. So 88.3% as a unit pass blocking for the University of Miami. That's phenomenal. Being in the high 60s to 70s is really good. Elite level, anything above 80, you got a heck of an O-line. That means almost every single snap, 8 out of 10 times, your offensive line is going to protect and you're going to get the ball off. Who wouldn't want that? 8 out of 10 times, I'm going to get a completed pass or a touchdown. Who wouldn't want that? And you can see that with University of Miami's pressure rate, only 17.7 pressure rate on the entire season. The scary thing about University of Miami last year, they're top 4 in PFF run blocking as well. So they had an elite passing, absolutely elite run blocking game. They also have a fantastic stat. I think it's top 2 or top 3 on this entire list. 10 former 4 or 5 star recruits on this offensive line. However, they land at number 9 because a lot of these guys are young. I think later in the year, they're absolutely going to be top 5, but these guys got to develop. Anytime you have young guys, no matter how talented they are playing in these big time games, they're going to have some mess ups. We saw with Francis Mauigoa when he was a true freshman starting, he had so many offsides penalties. So it's going to be fun to watch them, but they're at number 9 for now because in regards to returning production, they're just not there. At number 8, we have the University of Texas, the Longhorns. So Texas, I think, is another one. Is going to have a really good offensive line. They have good running backs. 3 returning starters on the offensive line, anchored by all SEC tackle Trevor Goosby. Trevor Goosby is a mountain of a man. That's a big boy. That's a lot of human right there. So Texas, they were kind of sporadic, just being honest with you, last year. They kind of had a roller coaster of a season, especially in the pass blocking. So 23 sacks were given up by the University of Texas last year across their 12 games. The bad thing for University of Texas and why they're a lot lower on this list, despite having 3 returners coming back, is the University of Texas, they had 2 games where they gave up 5 sacks or more. One against Vandy, one against Mississippi State. 5 sacks in a game is unacceptable. That means your O-line is getting beat the heck up. However, I think they addressed some guys in the portal, and their stars, like Trevor Goosby, are just too good not to have this particular team on this list, especially because the PFF grades show the tackles. The tackles were the strength of the team. The tackles are really good. And the scary part about it is Texas ranked 109th nationally in pass ranking, but a lot of their sacks came from the interior, not so much on the exterior. I think as a coach, you can work with that, right? The exterior, those tackles have to be so athletic. They have to be dancing bears, is what a lot of people will call them. However, the interior, these are the big, strong guys, and there's a lot more of those, believe it or not. You can get by with the 6'3", 290 guy. You can't really get by or replicate having a guy who's 6'8", 300 pounds that's a dancing bear. So I think the potential and the reason why I have Texas at 8, so Trevor Gooseby and their new tackle, Melvin Siani, both had PFF pass blocking grades above 80. That's astronomical. Again, that's elite. Remember, mid 70s is high end. That's really good. They both had pass blocking grades in the 80s. I think the big thing for Texas is PFF shows their run blocking really struggled in the short yardage, the goal line situations. They really relied too much on Arch Manning being able to improvise and big chunk plays from their running backs. They got good backs, but the run game was definitely up and down as well. The pass blocking game had issues on the interior. The great thing for Texas is they got them boys back there. They got recruits. So the University of Texas has 8 former 4 or 5-star guys that are in the room, that are on the roster. So they just need to develop those guys. And that's why the Longhorns are at number 8. Number 7, we have OU, Oklahoma. Listen, Oklahoma has some really good young talent on the offensive line. So Oklahoma is one of the few teams on this list. They have all 5. All 5 returners are coming back this year in 2026. Multiple of those 5 are going to be true sophomores since they had a couple true freshmen starting last season. The problem is last year they gave up 29 sacks. 29 is crazy. I think that's one of the highest on this list. However, remember I told you they had some true freshmen playing on that offensive line, and a lot of those sacks were in the early part of the season. So as those true freshmen got more comfortable, they got more used to playing in these big stadiums and big time games, they started to really reduce those sacks, and I think they're going to be potentially special in 2026. They have a lot of high upside in the passing game. They're able to protect John Mateer a little bit. And of course, that particular stat can be skewed because of how much John Mateer moves around. The problem and the reason that they're at number 7, not top 5, their run game was really bad last year. They really struggled in the run game. I've talked about it in other videos. I think those young guys, along with their anchors, got to figure it out in the run game in order for them to really get past that next level, get to SEC championships and beyond. The beauty, again, I'm going to keep talking about these 2 true freshmen because both of them ranked inside the top 10 in PFF pass blocking. So that lets you know they have a great trajectory. I believe one's a guard, one's a tackle. So true freshman Fasusi, he led the group in run blocking, and he actually finished top 3 in PFF in the entire SEC. So again, they just got to figure it out across the rest of the line. The good thing for OU is they have 7 former 4 or 5-star recruits. So they got guys in the room. You would love for that to be a little bit higher, but 7 is still elite. You have great offensive depth. Hopefully this year they can take the step. That's the big reason they're at number 7. Lots of young talent, lots to build off. At number 6, so this is another team that has all 5 starters returning, USC, the Trojans. Listen, in regards to taking a jump, USC, it might have the most potential on this entire list to really at the end of the year move up and be a top 5, maybe even top 3, since they have all 5 of those guys coming back to this offensive line that started a year ago. The reason I say that, USC, believe it or not, they only gave up 15 sacks all of last season. That actually ranked 12th nationally in the entire country. And on top of that, it was number 1 in the Big Ten, ranked higher than Indiana, higher than Oregon, 2 teams that are also really good. And I think we have both of them on this list. So they gave up very few sacks. So with anchors like Tobias Raymond, he logged 150 consecutive snaps for the USC Trojans without surrendering a single hit or a sack. Not even a hit. That's crazy. And that lets you know that guy is going to be really good and definitely going to be playing on Sundays at some point. The issue overall is USC's overall PFF pass blocking grade was right around 74, 75. So like I said earlier in the video, that's high end. It's just not elite. It could be a little bit better. And they were pretty average to high end in regards to the run blocking. As a unit, their ranking was around 60 PFF grade. Remember, the grade goes out of 100, but it was, not 60. It was in the mid 60s. So 65 to 67 in regards to the overall unit as a team in run blocking. The nice thing for USC, they did average 169 yards per game, and they have 2 Really good running back. So I think they're a team, they're going to go up in this list. I don't know how high or how far they're going to go up, but towards the end of the season, we're going to look back at this list and say, yeah, USC's O-line is definitely better than number 6. The nice thing for USC, they have 8 former 4 or 5-star recruits. They got guys in the building. They got depth. They just got to coach them up and build on it. At number 5, we have the Ohio State, the Buckeyes. So for Ohio State, they're going to have 4 returning starters. I think the bad thing when we know how an entire season went, we can look at Ohio State, and had we not seen the last 2 times they played, we might have thought Ohio State had the best offensive line in the entire college football. However, they played Indiana, then they played Miami, and in both of those games, Ohio State's offensive line got exposed. It was actually a big deciding factor, and the reason why they lost both of those games. In regards to this season, I think they got a lot to build on. I think this team and this offensive line is going to be really dang good. So they have 4 returning starters coming back to Ohio State. They only gave up 16 sacks the whole year last year, which actually ranked 13th nationally, just behind USC. However, this number is misleading because just like I mentioned earlier, so they gave up 10 sacks in the last 2 games. So you think about that, they only had 6 sacks leading into the entire season. And then they played Indiana, gave up 5. And then they played Miami and gave up 5. So the number is a little bit misleading, especially when Ohio State plays top tier talent. However, this O-line is really good and they still dominated all those other teams that have great defensive linemen for the entire season. So their offensive line in total ranked 63rd in the entire country in PFF grade, which was right at 69.3, and that's overall, combining pass blocking and run blocking. Pretty good stat. Remember, anything in the 60s to high 70s is above average, really good. Their pass blocking grade was a 74. I think the beauty of this Ohio State offensive line is they have stars. So Austin Seareveld, could be saying his name wrong, he had a run blocking grade at 83 for the year. That means, hey, this dude is really like that. And I got to note that these offensive linemen, you can't call them big uglies no more. These dudes, you see their interviews, they all swagged out. The NIL money is flowing. Listen, 83 for any offensive lineman, especially in the run game, lets you know that offensive lineman can make a hole. Overall, the unit is above average. Carson Hinsman, Luke Montgomery, both of those guys had a very solid and respectable 72.7 and 73.7 pass protection grade. The unit just struggled in general overall when it came to playing elite talent. So I really want to see that change this year. I think they're going to have multiple guys get drafted on this offensive line. They just got to develop them. The beauty is I think they might have the highest former 4 and 5-star recruits on the entire list. 11 former 4 or 5-star recruits. So this offensive line definitely has guys. We just need Ryan Day to put it all together. Coach them guys up, Ryan. What you doing? Coach them up. I think offensive line-wise, Ohio State's going to be fine this year. They just need to be better than they were last year in the big game. And who knows, they could be in a national championship. Okay, at number 4, now we're getting into the elite. At number 4, we have Georgia, them Dogs. Sorry, I do it every time. I can't help myself. When we talk the Dogs, they have 3 returning starters. But listen, with Georgia, they have a heavy rotation on the offensive line. I love teams that do this. Miami does this. I've seen Texas do it. I've seen multiple other teams on this list do it. Georgia probably does it the most when we come to offensive line rotation. It was hard not to put Georgia higher up on this list. So Georgia, they only gave up 13 sacks. 13 sacks all of last year, which might be number 1 on this list, definitely top 2. It ranked top 10 nationally in pass protection in regards to sacks given up by an offensive line unit. And it's no surprise because PFF-wise, Georgia was in the elite category in both pass blocking and run blocking. It's no wonder in the almighty SEC, they won the SEC again. They've done it so many times under Kirby Smart. But pass blocking wise, Georgia had an 83.1 PFF grade for pass blocking as a unit. That's astronomical when you consider the different defensive ends they're going against in the SEC week after week. So Ernest Green, along with Monroe Freeling, who departed, he went on to the NFL. They definitely led this group when we talk pass blocking with PFF grades in the 80s or higher. As a unit, they posted a 76.4 run blocking PFF grade, which is really good. That's definitely on the high end, dang near elite, right? At 77, essentially, if you round up, they're dang near in that elite category. Anything in the 80s is elite. And if you watch Georgia, if you watch them dogs, Georgia likes to pull their guards. And that's a headache for defensive end linebackers and especially for safeties. Listen, I played safety. I had to deal with some pulling guards when you're down there in the box. That's the last thing you want to see is a big hog wally, 6'4", 6'5", 320 pounds that's angry. It's like dealing with a rhinoceros. That's the only thing I can relate it to. I know it sounds funny, but it's like dealing with an angry rhinoceros. They pull their guards all the time, and they have guys. Listen, Georgia has 9 former 4 or 5-star recruits on the offensive line that are providing depth and starters. They're going to be good for years to come. That's why they're in the elite top 4. Okay, here we go, top 3. Now listen, it's going to get a little debatable when we talk these top 3 teams, and that's why I want you to drop it in the comments. Let me know if I got it right. Let me know if I messed up. But at number 3, we have Tennessee, the Volunteers. So listen, a big reason why Tennessee is ranked in the top 3. All 5 of their starters from last year are returning on a line that was very good. Now, one stat that's kind of difficult to deal with when I look at Tennessee is they gave up 22 sacks last year. That's quite a bit. However, you got to remember that Tennessee is a pass-happy team. You're going to give up a lot more sacks if you're throwing and putting your offensive line in a situation where they can and could give up sacks more than all these other teams. Regardless of the sacks, as a unit, the Tennessee Volunteers ranked 11th in the country in pass blocking. So that should let you know how good these guys really are, seeing that they're throwing more than a lot of the teams on this list, and they still ranked 11th as a unit in pass blocking. And that goes to show because they averaged 466 total yards per game. So obviously they're doing something right on the offensive line. We all know on offense, it all starts with the offensive line. When you're putting up that many yards, dang near 500 yards per game, your offensive line has to be doing something right. So Wendell Moe and Lance Hurd lead the team in run blocking with a 73.7 and 67.4 PFF grades respectfully. Really good, right in that above average range. I've already mentioned that the entire group ranked really high in pass blocking. The big thing with Tennessee is, along with those 5 returning starters, they have some depth there. So Tennessee has 8 former 4 or 5-star recruits on the offensive line. That lets you know, hey, this particular offensive line, they have a great chance to be really good and really special this year. I'm interested to see how it's going to play out for Tennessee since they may have a true freshman at quarterback. The nice thing is he's going to be protected really well with all 5 of those starters coming back. Here we go into the top 2. At number 2, I have Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish. So listen, Notre Dame was really fun to watch last year on offense, especially with those 2 running backs that both ended up in the first round. It's an astronomical stat. Every time I get a chance to talk about it until the season starts, it's unheard of. Your first and second string running back go in the first round of the NFL draft. So Notre Dame has 3 starters returning. They only gave up 12 sacks all of last year. That's why they're top 2 on this list. That's crazy. That's an astronomical number, especially since Notre Dame, they play some pretty good teams. That's literally only averaging around 1 sack per game. They also ranked 7th in the entire country in passing efficiency. So that means when CJ Carr was backing up, it was dang near always a completed pass. Overall, they had elite run blocking PFF grades and above average pass blocking grades. They actually finished in the top 5 in run blocking. So that tells you this is one of the best offensive line units in all of college football. Extremely premier if you're top 5, but you still have a quarterback that gave you the capability to drop back and throw the ball whenever you needed to. Emil Wagner definitely led the way for Notre Dame in PFF with a 78.1 pass blocking grade. Wagner also led in run blocking at 72.2. I might have had those flipped. Either way, he's in that above average range. He's definitely one of the best offensive linemen in the entire country, and he'll be back this year for the Fighting Irish. I think this particular team is really hoping to take a big-time leap in 2026. They did struggle in some of their biggest games, obviously, against Miami. Miami had 2 or 3 sacks. Mostly all of those were at the end of the game, but it sealed the game for Miami to win that first game in week 1. And then, of course, against Texas A&M in that second game on the year, they had some big sacks that were given up by Notre Dame as well. If they can clean that up in their big games this year in 26, it's going to be scary because another big stat for Notre Dame, they have 11 former 4 or 5-star recruits. They have the depth. They absolutely are great at developing, obviously. So now we want to see Notre Dame take that leap. And who knows, at the end of the year, Notre Dame could be the #1 offensive line on this list. Are y'all ready for #1? Are you ready to hear who has the top offensive line unit in all of college football? Okay, at #1, we have Indiana, the hugest Coach Cignetti. I love talking about Indiana because what they have accomplished is second to none in regards to who they are and what they've done it with. So unlike the other teams, I have to read this stat first. Indiana won the national championship last year, and they only have this year coming in three former 4 or 5-star recruits. That's crazy. That's astronomical in regards to who they are and what they accomplished in 2025. Why they're ranked #1 going into 2026, they have 4 returning starters on this particular team that just won a national championship. Now, they did give up 25 sacks last year, but again, similar to Miami, they played in all 16 games. They only had a few games where they had multiple sacks. CBS Sports actually ranked Indiana as the #1 offensive line unit in the country. They've been ranked by a multitude of different people as the #1 offensive line because they're just so dang efficient anytime they drop back or they run the ball. Overall, elite PFF grades for pass blocking and run blocking. You could see it when you watch Indiana in regards to how big some of these running lanes were last year for their running backs. It didn't matter if it was a draw play. It didn't matter if it was a power play. Their guys got the ball and just had a bunch of green grass to run. Who doesn't want that as a running back? Carter Smith ranked top 10 as a run blocker in the entire country last year. And while we're talking about Carter Smith, he became the only tackle in the entire country last year to rank top 10 in run blocking and in pass blocking when we talk PFF. This guy is dang near a surefire first-round NFL draft pick next year. He's a huge anchor on the Indiana offensive line. We know Curt Cignetti can coach the offensive line and make sure he puts even his weakest link in the right spot. Because in the offensive line, the saying is true. You're only as good as your weakest link. This offensive line doesn't really have too many weak links. They're going to be scary good in 2026. And I already mentioned they don't have that many top-end recruits. It doesn't matter where you start. It matters how you finish. And they finish as national championships in 2026 for the 2025-2026 season. So let me know, did I mess up? Who did I get wrong? Is there another team that should maybe be #1? That is the top 10 offensive line units. And I look forward to see how much this list changed going into this 2026 season. Thank you for tuning in. Drop a comment. I'll talk to you soon.
Daniel